and today is the day. Finally was able to get an Israel Adesanya first auto. A lot to talk about with this. This is a rare instance where we have a Hall of Famer, a champion that has 4 first autos, and I want to kind of talk about why I decided to choose the card that I did. But first, let's show off that card, man. And it is the 2020 Topps UFC Knockout Auto Jumbo Matte Relic, purple of 25. And I decided there was one up raw. I decided to get the graded one. We got SGC 10 and 9.5. So very, very good grade here. We'll talk about pop reports here in a minute. But yeah, it's a fight used matte relic from UFC 236. So UFC 236 is Gastelum versus Izzy, right? And that fight is one of my favorite fights of all time. I remember watching that fight at work. I actually had a monster bet with another guy at work. So pretty early in Izzy's run, but I was a fan back then. He comes out. They put on an all-time performance, and that fight is now inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame for fights. There's only 10 fights in there, and Izzy and Gastelum for 236 are in that, which I think is pretty sick. One thing about this, I do like that with the SGC black. Now, the red with PSA, I think would really do a lot of negative on the eye appeal of this card, and I don't think it would help at all. But the black on the purple with the black and two-tone, I don't know if this is bleach or what what specifically this was on the canvas, but I think that the SGC holder here actually fits perfectly with this card. So I was happy to go ahead and pay up just a little bit. Decided not to go for the raw, decided to pay up a little bit and get the one that's already graded. That is a really good grade. And especially with the interior here on the relic, the 9.5 is pretty solid, man. But yeah, got the cool Izzy image here. This is also of 25. And, when we're talking about these cards and talking about, huge purchases and like things that I want to have long term, one of the big criteria is going to be print run, right? And the print run on this card is actually pretty solid. We got a base of 50, the purple of 25, a red of 8, and a gold of 1. So that's a total of only 84 cards in the entire print run for the Jumbo Matte Relic. The pop report here, we'll kind of go over and kind of show you guys this as we're talking through it. So we have the blue and purple here, and it only 4 graded with PSA. So pretty minimal there with PSA. With SGC, also going to be pretty minimal. It's only going to be 7. So, and this is within all the parallels, right? So like very low on the pop reports here. We have 13 total graded in all of the parallels. So of 84, only 13 are graded. And of the one that I have, it's a pop 2 in the SGC and none higher among any of the other grading companies. So this 10 auto and 9.5 is basically as high as it can go. If you're enjoying these UFC card videos, please hit the like button, subscribe, and also think about joining the Back Crew, man. All the support helps the channel so much. Thank you for watching. All right, so now let's kind of talk through why I decided to choose this auto jumbo matte relic instead of the other 3 Israel Adesanya first autos. So first, let's kind of just look at the other 3 first autos here. So we have this one, which is the one that I got right, and this is actually the red version. This is the of 8, I believe. Really nice card. This actually I think would look pretty good with the PSA. And then we have this one, which is the AKA ink, which was actually, this was one that I was going to go for instead of the jumbo auto matte relic. But then I kind of started thinking about it, and I was like, man, to be able to have a piece of like one of my favorite fights of all time and my favorite Izzy fight of all time, I think that kind of outweighed some of the pros that come with this card, which we'll talk about here in a minute as well. And we also have this Izzy Inception, which is originally the one I wanted probably a year or 2 ago, and decided to kind of go a different direction with that. But this is a beautiful card, man. I really like the design of this card. Just the layout, the shapes in the back, the auto spot, on-card auto. I think it's just a really good-looking card as far as eye appeal goes. And then we have this one, which in my opinion is my least favorite for multiple reasons, which again, we'll talk about here in a little bit. But this is the knockout auto. So this is just going to be the 2020 knockout autograph. I mean, it's still a cool card. Good image. You got him and Gastelum, which again, all-time fight, on-card auto. It is horizontal, which, depending on what your tastes are, that could be, a plus or minus for this card. But yeah, so we have a couple different reasons why I decided to go for the card that I chose, which is this relic, right? which one, of course, is going to be, it is tied specifically to the event of 236, which, like I said earlier, is a Hall of Fame. It has been inducted into the Hall of Fame. Only 10 fights. There were only 10 fights in that, which I think is interesting. And this is the most modern fight by far to be inducted into that. Now, I'm sure we will continue to see fights get inducted, but I think it's just cool that already, you know, along with all of the other accolades, which again, we'll talk about later on in this video, we have that as well going for it on this card. But aside from it being tied to the history, we also have this, which I kind of alluded to earlier, which is the actual print run of the card. So we got 50, 25, red of 8, and gold 101. And when we compare that with some other ones, when we compare it to the Inception auto checklist, let's say we have 200, and this is actually a typo. I believe it's 99. We have a 99, a 25, an 8, and a 1. So when we look at that, that's going to be a total print run of 133. So that's going to be 133 versus mine, which was 84. So again, I think that kind of insulates yourself in the future, depending on what, you know, parallel you can get. You know, if you can get the red or even the blue. I was looking at the blue. The blue looks really good as well. That would kind of insulate yourself in the future. Also talking about the first autos. So the 25 knockout is even higher, right? So we have 200, we have 50, we have 25, 8, and 1. And, you know, that's going to be quite a big print run at 284. So it is a really nice card. I mean, it still is a first auto, right? But whenever you're talking about a unique situation like this, where we have 4 first autos, some of the, you know, the demand is going to be separated among the 4. And whenever we're having, you know, print run that's pretty high like this, I think it even could be split up even further. So the 2 lowest on the print run were the AKA Ink and the Jumbo Auto Matte Relic. So I'm going to put all 4 of these up right now. We'll put the images up, and then I'm going to put the print run below it. And you kind of let me know, right? Because we're talking about multiple different things here. We're talking about print run. We're talking about supply and demand, and basically trying to insulate us from in the future with trying to, you know, dodge the supply. If you do want to sell, the supply on eBay hopefully is low, right? So that you can kind of command whatever you want with the price, and you can kind of have a little more leverage as a seller. But yeah, so we have all of these things to consider. We also have on-card auto versus sticker auto, right? So the one that I have is a sticker auto, the Matte Relic, but it is, you know, a 2-tone patch. It is tied to UFC 236, and it is the second lowest print run of the 4. We also have the AKA ink, right, which is on-card auto. It is a red ink also, right, which is pretty sick. And surprisingly enough, I believe they have the blue ink as well. You know, we have the inscription signature of the AKA of Stylebender with Israel Adesanya, which is always a good look, right? And that is going to be the lowest of the print run, with only a total of 34 printed. So that is very, very low, and is one that I really have my eye on. But price tag, and then not being tied to the UFC 36, I really wanted to get a card that was, you know, event specific, an event specific relic on the canvas, and it all kind of came together at the same time, where I really wanted to get one of those. And then I also wanted to get, you know, an Izzy first auto. And I think that kind of like culminated in me determining that the Jumbo Auto Matte Relic is probably the best card for me. All right, now let's look at some comps for some of these cards. And this is just going to be like broad kind of macro view. We're going to be looking at really comps for Izzy's first auto. And you guys can kind of decide which one you think is the best. What do you think is the best, you know, value play, or, you know, just the one that you think is your favorite. And we have the 1 of 1 right here. This is going to be the Jumbo Fight Matte Relic. And this is really nice card, man. I mean, you've got the 2-tone patch, maybe 3 here with it right there. Already graded, right? 1 of 1, got the gold on it. And you're talking about in 2021, 5,228. Now, I mean, when comparing this with some of the more recent sales, which we'll see in a second, I think this is probably I mean, honestly, this card should be more expensive at this moment based upon the legacy of Izzy and what he's been able to do within, you know, the past 5-6 years. But as far as just comparing it to other comps, this is probably, you know, right around where it should be. Long term, I think that this should be, you know, easily a $10,000 plus card, being a first auto and being tied to, you know, one of the best fights of all time, in my opinion. We also got this one, which was pretty recent, right? This was in summer of 25. I was actually watching this to see what this would do. And when it went for this much, I was like, okay, I'm not in the market really for this card anymore. But it is super nice. This is going to be the of 10, which is interesting because the checklist said of 25. So, I mean, some of these checklists, man, there's just lots of errors on them. But we got the first auto. This is the AKA, and this is a PSA 8 on card auto for $2,300. So, I mean, that's pretty pricey, man. It is a really good looking card. And honestly, I think the blue on blue might look better than the red. Let's see. What do we think? Blue on blue look better than the red? Kind of similar here. I wish this was. I think if this was red, it would really flow a little bit better there. But yeah, the blue with the blue looks really, man. I mean, either of these are money cards, right? Like just super nice. Let's see what else. We'll get a big this big Inception auto here. So this is 1,400, and this is the red on red. This is probably my favorite parallel for this card, because if I did have the red, I would 100% be putting this into a PSA holder. I think it looks great with the color match there. The red on red, got the on card auto right there. We're talking about 1,400 in 2002. So what is that now, right? Is that down? Is that up? To me, this is just a great buy. I mean, you're talking about an of 8 first auto of, one of the best guys. What is Izzy in your opinion? In my opinion, he's probably top 15 ever. I mean, he's had an incredible career, which we'll talk about his legacy kind of in a little bit. And we have this one here. This is an even more of a steal in my opinion. 1,200 for this. And this is the of 8. You got the two-tone patch, and this looks almost like a letter. So I bet you could find this exact spot on the canvas. And the odds are Gastelum might have got dropped right on this. One of these guys got dropped on this exact spot because there was a ton of knockdowns in 236 in that fight. But yeah, man, just kind of an interesting topic that I wanted to talk with y'all about. And also in the comments below, what do you think about having 4 first autos? I know some people, I could see the argument being made where there's 4 first autos, there's too much variance in potential buyers and which card they would want. And I could see people honestly kind of staying away from this play altogether because of that. But I think it's interesting, and I do think that Izzy has, the following, and he has the accolades, and he has the star power to kind of keep all of these cards afloat in the future. And the reason I say that is because of the legacy. And I mean, I think he will be collectible and remembered all time, not only within the UFC landscape, but also within the UFC card world, man. Let's talk about some of his accolades, right? First, let's talk about win streak. He's got a 12-fight win streak, second of all time in the middleweight division behind Anderson Silva. He is tied for 10th all time in UFC history for that 12-fight win streak with Volk, with Nunez, with Tony Ferguson. So I mean, when we go down all of these, like, he is just really among the all-time greats with a lot of these different title accolades and just accolades in general. Also title wins. He's got 8 title wins, and he's got 12 title fights in 5 years. One of the things that I liked most about Izzy's run was the activity level. I mean, I think people took it for granted, but this dude was fighting a lot. He was fighting a lot. He was fighting often, and he was honestly in some really good fights with some really high quality opponents. 5 title defenses in a row during his first title reign. He was also the only 2-time middleweight champion ever in UFC history. Was able to win the belt, lost it, and then won it back. Now let's talk about some of his opponents, right? And this is a pretty crazy resume, in my opinion. We got Anderson Silva, who, when you hear Anderson Silva, you might think like he was washed, but that was fight of the night. Anderson Silva had come off fighting DC. He had come off a tainted win against Nick Diaz. Like, he was still pretty solid whenever they fought. He was coming back from the broken leg against Weidman, but I don't think this version of Anderson Silva was really washed. I mean, he was still pretty talented at this time. Obviously, he wasn't at his peak. Also, Alex Pereira is on this list of quality opponents, and that might be, one of the biggest moments of all time in UFC history. I think it's, to this day, probably the best celebration after a win in UFC history. Also a win against Robert Whittaker, not once, but twice. Got a win against Yoel Romero, got a win against Kelvin Gastelum, has a win against Jared Cannonier, and has wins over Marvin Vettori 2 times as well. I mean, the dude just really was active. And also, like, these are not slouches. These are not cans. This is a ton of high-quality opponents at the very highest level. And when we're talking about longevity, when we're talking about legacy being remembered forever, I think you have to have some really big moments, man. And he did have quite a good amount of big moments. I mean, obviously you have the fight with Gastelum at 326. I mean, you're talking about one of 10 fights that are in the UFC Hall of Fame. I think that kind of speaks for itself. You have the 2 fights with Poatan, which are absolutely massive, and the win against Poatan, to see him go on and do the things that he's done, has done nothing but lift Izzy's legacy, in my opinion, with the starch in the second fight at 185. That was also knockout of the year in that second fight, which, I think should be, mentioned whenever you're talking about big moments, as well as the huge celebration. We also have kind of just, an interesting aura, an interesting story around him. I mean, he has, the dance walkouts, which we probably will never see anything like that again. I had honestly never seen anything like that before either. So that's really interesting. And something that doesn't get talked about enough, in my opinion, the fight with Jan Blachowicz, man. I mean, he goes up to try and be double champ at 205. And I feel like nobody talks about that fight at all. It was a pretty close fight. I had it 3-2 Jan, but like, it was a really close fight, man. And it's a cool thing to have in your legacy to have. He didn't win, obviously, right? So he's not a double champ, but he did try and he did get close. And that's something that's pretty cool, in my opinion, that doesn't ever really get talked about when we talk about Izzy. And the cool stats keep coming. We have the most knockdowns in a title fight ever in the fight at UFC 236 with Kelvin Gastelum. We also have Izzy tied with Anderson Silva for the most knockdowns of all time in middleweight history. Again, Anderson Silva and Israel Adesanya are tied for the most knockdowns of all time in middleweight history. When you hear people talk about, boring fights or point fighter, like, maybe you didn't watch all the film on this guy. He is in the top 10 in total knockdowns in UFC history as well, and he is in the top 10 for title fight wins in UFC history. The legacy is set. The moments are there. In my opinion, you have 4 really cool cards that you could choose from for Izzy first autos. Interesting scenario where I don't think we've ever seen a person from this era of UFC cards, basically Panini and below, with 4 first autos. Normally you have 1 or 2 first autos, but to have 4 is kind of interesting. And now it is, in my opinion, slightly a con because the supply is going to be more. There's more print run associated because 4 different cards, but there's also 4 designs that you can choose from, which I think is pretty fun. Of these 4, 3 of these, in my opinion, are really nice too. So I think you can kind of like pick and choose what you like most about these. Do you like the tied to the event aspect? Do you want an on-card auto? Do you like the AKA ink? Do you like the Inception, design? Do you just like the plain knockout auto, which is a pretty nice card as well, in my opinion. So a really interesting story, and very happy to have picked up one of these, the 2020 UFC Knockout Jumbo Auto Matte Relic Israel Adesanya. If you like UFC cards, you're going to like my channel, so check out these videos over here and subscribe for more videos just like this.